Hello everyone, and welcome back to Inside ArtScroll, where the books you read and the people who write them come to life. Today I am privileged to be joined by Rabbi Daniel Glatstein. Thank you, Rabbi Daniel, for joining us.
Rabbi Yitzchak, good to see you.
We're here to discuss primarily your Haggadah, Rabbi Daniel Glatstein on the Haggadah, which came out last year, was one of the best-selling Haggadahs of the year. I can tell you the feedback that I got on this Haggadah was phenomenal.
Thank you.
People appreciate your style. They appreciate the questions you ask, the answers you give, the way you build up a sugya almost, on the issues that interest people as relates to the Haggadah. Talk for a moment about why you were propelled to write a Haggadah. What was the mindset when you wrote it?
Tell you, look, there's certainly no shortage of Haggadahs out there, or certainly no shortage of ArtScroll Haggadahs.
Right.
But what's amazing in Torah is that the more you look at something, the more you see, still makom hiniach lanu. There's always a niche, there's always a place. And studying, I wanted to study the Haggadah, not just to say, a vertlach here, a vertlach there, there's always a dvar Torah you could say on each shtickle, but to look at the Haggadah as one living document, to try to understand what's the introduction of the Haggadah, what's the main body of the Haggadah, what's the close of the Haggadah, what's the flow, why do certain Tanaim appear in the beginning and they sort of, you don't hear from them again, and other Tanaim, they come toward the end of the Seder, as if each Tana has a specific role in the Seder and a specific juncture. Is there significance to the number of words or the number of paragraphs? To look at the Haggadah as one entity and also as a living entity. What I mean by that is why certain concepts are mentioned where they are. Mm-hmm. And looking at the Haggadah in this vein, it opened up like a very vast vistas of understanding for me, and I was inspired to share it.
It's interesting that you mentioned that you approached it like that, because I was going to ask, when you decide, okay, I want to write a commentary on the Haggadah, okay, where do you start? I mean, you mentioned the ArtScroll Haggadahs. There are dozens of ArtScroll Haggadahs, from the classics, printed decades ago, to more recent ones, and each one brings its own flavor from a different gadol or from a collection of gedolim and things of that sort. When you sat down, so to speak, proverbially, to write a Haggadah, do you just start at Kaddish and say, okay, what can I find out about that?
People often ask, what's the process?
Right. And
I feel that I wish I could pinpoint what the process is. The only analogy I have is, Torah is, of course, it's a chachma, but I think that in terms of writing, it's an art. In other words, if you were to ask a painter, how did you start with this painting? Which dot did you paint first? I don't know if a person will be able to identify. It's so to speak, like you have an inspiration and then
you just go with it.
It flows, yeah. If I give you an example of what I mean, the Haggadah basically, I'll give you a few examples, okay? The bookends of the Haggadah. The Haggadah begins, let's say, halach ma'anya, hashata hacha, l'shana haba ba'ar Yisrael. That's basically, in Aramaic, l'shana haba b'Yerushalayim. It ends with l'shana haba b'Yerushalayim. So, to me, that's certainly of note. It can't be a coincidence that it begins and ends the same way. The Gemara in Saita says that if you want to, and there's a rule in life, anybody knows, if they want to get a good idea what a book is about, you take the book, you open up to the beginning, you open up to the end, and that gives you an idea what the book is about. The Gemara applies this to the Torah itself. The Gemara says, the Torah is kula gemilas chasadim. It begins that Hashem clothed the Adam Harishon. It ends that Hashem buries Moshe Rabbeinu. It begins with Chesed, it ends with Chesed. So the whole Torah is Kulei Chesed. So that would have to mean, if the Haggadah begins, L'shan haba b'Yerushalayim, and it ends that way, that must be what the Haggadah is about. That must be thematic to the entire body of material. And I'm wondering, but it's not at all. L'shan haba b'Yerushalayim has nothing to do with Yetzias Mitzrayim. This is a story. We went down to Mitzrayim, they enslaved us, and Hashem freed us. But it's not about, aspirations for Geula, but it must be that if these are the bookends, Chazal, and by the way, when I say Chazal, it's amazing. There's so many Haggadahs. Who wrote the Haggadah? Who wrote it? I literally looked in dozens and dozens of Haggadahs.
We don't know.
So I really looked into this topic extensively, and this edition begins with a major essay, 10 approaches to who wrote the Haggadah. So that's an example of, there's so much information about the Haggadah, but you'll always find pockets of, and opinions that range from Anshe Knesset Gdola, Moshe Rabbeinu. Reb Chaim Falaji says it was Rabbi Akiva. The Malbim Haggadah says it was Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi.
Right.
So it could be, and Rav Miller says the Jewish people wrote the Haggadah. It's a compilation.
Over the years, right.
Yeah.
Which would explain certain language discrepancies and things like that. But if I could say that, I think that's what makes, from my vantage point as a reader, what makes this Haggadah so unique, maybe different than others, is that almost every topic that you address, when the reader reads it, they think, hey, how come I never asked that question? Like, who wrote the Haggadah? And then you have that lengthy essay. Or you discuss, for example, how do we say Hallel at night? That's a very basic question. Hallel said Bayoim, not Balayla. And you have a beautiful essay on that. But these are questions that people have that maybe they should have. They don't realize till they see it in your Haggadah. Hold on, this is a question I should have had. And then you address it so beautifully and you lay it out step by step by step. You incrementally, and you almost build the reader's curiosity. That's your style in all your svarim.
Thank you.
You do the same in your beautiful sefer that you put out not long ago on Rebbe Balanes, and your other svarim on the Moyadim and so on and so forth. You have, Baruch Hashem, this unique style that people connect to, and it manifests itself very prominently in this Haggadah. Besides for the depth, the clarity, your Yetzias, it's a breath of fresh air. So whoever, the people who didn't get to taste the beauty of Rabbi Glatstein on the Haggadah last year, Mitzrayim, they should be able to do it this year at the Seder. But as a segue, I'm curious, growing up, Pesach, the Seder, what was it like in the Glatstein house? And who had the ashpa on you to create the flavor of Zman Chirusenu?
Well, the Seder night is the go-to memory in everybody's mind. And whenever somebody thinks about the Haggadah, they always think back to how their Seder was growing up. One of the very powerful things I bring in the very beginning was my grandfather, who I've spoken about many times in this platform, Rabbi Daniel Glatstein, who was a survivor of the Holocaust. He passed away a few years ago, the night of the Seder.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah, well, the first day of Pesach in the morning. So my father asked my grandfather, this was in the morning of Tesvav Nisan, he said, Tati, are you okay? Because he wasn't so responsive. And he said, I'm waiting for the Geula. And he had Misas Nashika.
Wow.
So my grandfather, if you remember from the Purim book, my grandfather was named Mordechai because his bris was on Tainus Esther, but he passed away on Pesach. So we say, Mismach Geula LeGeula.
Right.
His whole life, and this is a theme of the Sefer, his whole life, it was awaiting the Geula. He believed, when he was in Auschwitz, he believed Be'emunah Shlema, every single day Mashiach would come. And Mamish, his dying words, his last words were, he's awaiting the Geula. So when I say that the bookends are Lashana Haba B'Yushalayim, this reflects that, it's very important to tell our children. They're going to say, we're reading the story, we read it last year, we read it the year before. Well, we're reading a story that happened 3,300 years ago. So I bring Rabbeinu Bechaye in at least 6 Mekayimos, in the Karakemach, Al HaTorah, he says all the Nevi'im are misnave in the same signon, in the same fashion, that the events of Yetzias Mitzrayim were the prototype, the pre-enactment, the Masei Avisim Labanim, to the Gula HaSida. And all of these miracles will replay again before the coming of Mashiach. So whatever we're going to read about and learn the night of the Seder, it's not history, it's destiny. It's the future of the Jewish people. The Nesivos has a diuk. Al achas kama kama toiva kefula umechupeles, where every single miracle was layered. Why was it layered? Because it happened then, but that was like a dress rehearsal that it will happen again. So Lashana Haba Yerushalayim are the perfect bookends of the Haggadah. They reflect the mamish, the toichen ha'inyan, the true nature of what we're trying to speak about the night of the Seder. It's important that a teenager do they, like the buzzword is, do they connect with something that happened so long ago? It's important that they understand this is not about past, it's about future, it's about them, it's about what they're going to see, it's about what they need to hope for.
Right, I was going to ask you on, you're talking about the Seder being meaningful and people connecting to it. For many people, maybe it's not as inspiring as it should be, as much as there's a lot of nostalgia, like you said. It brings back memories of people's youth, but they're sitting at the Seder, they feel like, hold on, we read these words before, we've done it before. What's your secret as a Rav and as a Mashpia and as a Mechaber of a Haggadah to infuse all of our Sedarim with the vitality, with the freshness? So that it's not like saying over the same Vart that you heard 14 times on what Vehi stands for. You know?
Right, exactly. I think this point is very ennobling for people. If we could realize, aside from the idea that we're supposed to imagine as if we were there in the past, I think it's worthwhile to try to develop the idea that this is what we're hoping for in the future. I mean, Rabbeinu Bachai says there will be makos. There will be makos on the Umayis Ha'olam, that there'll be a Kriyas Yamsuf. He says, how in the Torah gives different dates of how long Mitzrayim lasted for. Was it 210? Was it 400? Was it 430? And basically, Klal Yisrael didn't know how to reconcile all the dates until the day we left. And then they realized, okay, 210 in Mitzrayim, 400 from the Leda of Yitzchak, 430 from the Bris Bein Abasarim. But at the time, you had, Bnei Ephraim, they left 30 years early, they miscalculated. But Rabbi Machai just points out, if you look in Sefer Daniel, 3 different dates are given. We don't even know what the years are. So he says, when we knew precise numbers, 210, 400, 430, we still couldn't reconcile it until it happened. Alachas kama v'kama, the 3 dates given in Daniel, will not be able to be reconciled until the great day comes. But he literally learns that every single detail will replay itself. To the point I saw, like one of the Rebbes asked, the Shomer Amunim asks, well, by Makas B'chayros, it says there will never be a scream like that. So no, he says, because La'asad Lavai, it won't only be the B'chayrim, all the enemies. So to read the Haggadah like that this is not just ancient history, it's what we're aspiring for, what we're yearning for, changes the view on the Haggadah. Right.
Now in this Haggadah, you have any favorite vertlach? People always want to know, what's your favorite vart?
My favorite
insight, something that people, or a revelation that maybe people don't know.
Okay, this is a gift from heaven. This is a gift from heaven. At the Haggadah begins with this famous Seder. You have Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Azariah, Rabbi Tarfain, Rabbi Yeshua. They're in Bnei Brak. You have 5 Tanoim Bnei Brak. It's one of the only accounts of Tanoim sitting at a Seder. And I always wondered, you have Rabbi Azariah, you have Rabbi Akiva, you have Rabbi Yeshua. Where's the Nasi? Where's Ram Gamliel? Where'd he go? Well, he wasn't invited? What's going on? So, I don't know, maybe he was out of town. He was with his own family. There is, by the way, a Tosefta that talks about Ram Gamliel Seder, and it says Ram Gamliel spent the whole night learning Hilchos Pesach, which is very different than what these Tanoim did. They were Mesaprim Yetzias Mitzrayim. Right. So where was he? Right. By the way, he's not mentioned in the whole Haggadah. Until the end. But when he comes back with a bang. Okay, so this was. If you look in the Yad of the Rambam has there a nusach of the Haggadah. He adds one word that revolutionizes the whole Haggadah. He says, we know there's also a Mishnah that we say, Amar Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Hare ani keben shivim shana. Everybody knows, as if I'm 70 years old, but really he was 18. It was the day he was appointed as Nasi. The Rambam adds the word lohem. Amar lohem Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, meaning, at that historic Seder of the 5 Tanoim,
that's where he said it.
He said to them, by the way, I feel like I'm 70. That means we know that was the day he was appointed a Nasi. But the day he was appointed a Nasi, Ram Gamliel was deposed. So that explains why he wasn't there. Obviously, he wasn't there. He was deposed. He probably wasn't comfortable sitting with the group of Chachamim that deposed him.
Mm-hmm.
The Gemara says that the day Ram Gamliel was deposed, the Beis Medrash was nitois v'hasafsalim. He had many, either 400 benches, 700 benches. Why? Because Ram Gamliel had a policy called Talmud she'ein toichay kabara al yikanes. You had to be worthy to enter the Beis Medrash. I think it is very telling that the Haggadah begins on the day Ram Gamliel is deposed. Because what are we doing the night of the Seder? Night of the Seder, we're saying, let's open the doors, bring in all the kinderlach, the Tam, the Sheni Yadei Lishal, the Rasha, everybody in. Do you think if Ram Gamliel was standing at the door, they'd all be able to come in? There's not a chance they would be let. He would have let, it would be Keneged Ben Echa Dibra Torah. Chachamahu Omer.
Right.
So the whole nature of the Seder is, it doesn't matter who the child is, it's an open door policy. So the Haggadah has to begin. Amar lohem Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, and Ram Gamliel's not here. So he says, how does he get back in the door? I think the Haggadah parallels that story in the Gemara Brachos perfectly. Because at the end of the story, Ram Gamliel asks Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Yeshua for Mechila. Right? The Gemara says it was precipitated because Ram Gamliel asked Rabbi Yeshua to stand, and Rabbi Yeshua was very uncomfortable, and the Chacham didn't like that Ram Gamliel was imposing his authority over Rabbi Yeshua. Ultimately, Ram Gamliel asked Rabbi Yeshua for Mechila. Rabbi Yeshua says no. Ram Gamliel says, do it in the honor of my Avoisai. Rabbeinu Nissim says, who is Ram Gamliel's forefathers? Hillel. So if we want to bring Ram Gamliel back into the Seder, we got to invoke Hillel. Zeichel mikdash kehillel, yeah? We have to mention Hillel. Now, the Gemara says that there was a great dilemma. When we bring Ram Gamliel back, should we make Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah step down? We can't do that. Malan b'kodesh ve'ein moridin. Yeah? So the Gemara says, okay, we got to keep Rabbi Elazar. Should they split the duties? The Gemara came up with the following formula. 3 and 1. Ram Gamliel gets 3 weeks. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah gets 1 week. So when we bring Ram Gamliel back, we say, Ram Gamliel, you're back. We give you 3 things. Ram Gamliel hay omer, kol shaloima elay omer, shloisha dvarim halalu. But the Haggadah mamish parallels that episode of Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yeshua. And I found a siyua in Rav Nachman of Breslov to this whole. Yeah. He says, when they came to tell the Chachamim, Higia Zman Kriya Shema, so the Likutei Moharan says, Higia Kriya Shema Shel Shachris. Shachris stands for Sheni Yadei Lishal, Chacham, Rasha, Tam. In other words, they were saying the reason why we're having this Seder is to allow everybody in. We need the Shachris, we need everybody in. Once we've let everyone in, perhaps we could bring Ram Gamliel back in as well.
Wow.
But that's just an example of how the format of the Haggadah. And I think that's like a novel matana. Yeah.
Wow. What an explanation. And what a find from Likutei Moharan. Wow. Yeah. What else? What else do you have to share?
Yeah, so let's talk about also, we know, the Reikeach, Rabbi Elazar Gamarza, ascribes significance, let's say, to the number of words in Megillas Esther, or the number of words in each segment of Tefillah. So it's like, is there a significance, or do we even have a number count of the number of words in the Haggadah? I have a sefer, it's a very rare sefer, it's called Sefer Avas Torah, by Reb Pinchas Ish Horowitz, from, I believe, the 19th century. He says he did a count from the beginning of the Haggadah until the official end of Gal Yisrael, 1,820 words in the Haggadah. Say, okay, what are you going to do with that? He said he counted the number of times the Shem Havaya is in the Chumash, 1,820 times. Ad kan. But it hit me, it's so clear why the number of words in Haggadah correspond perfectly to the number of times Shem Havaya is in the Megillah. You see,
by the way, according to the Girsa, it's Amar Lohem.
Yeah.
I don't know what the count would be. The count would be off.
Oh, saying good.
You're saying
Very good.
Okay.
We could be.
By the
one
way,
off,
is it curious, not to interrupt your train of thought? The text of the Haggadah as we know it, across Klal Yisrael, is it pretty much uniform from community to community? Are you familiar from Ashkenazim to Sfardim to?
It's a very good question. And I don't want to say definitively because I'm not certain. I'm not sure.
But at least according to one girsa, it's 820 words for sure.
It's 1,820 words.
1,820.
I guess Nusach Ashkenaz. In other words, the Nusach of Ashkenazim. Yeah. And I'm sure each kehillah, whatever their word count is, there's a dvarim gedolim ein b'mikra.
Right.
But so Paroi, was Paroi a mammon or was Paroi a kofer? It's a big question.
Right.
Paroi had a very good rebbe. His rebbe was Yosef, and Paroi tells Yosef the dream, and Yosef says, "Paroi, Elokim yanesh loim Paroi." And when Yosef interprets the dream, Paroi said, "You're right. Good gesagt, Yosef. Hanimsa kazeh ish asher ruach Elokim boy." So it sounds like he became a mammon.
Right.
On the other hand, throughout the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim, Paroi says, "Mi Hashem asher eshma b'koilai." So was he a mammon or was he not? So the Shlach HaKadosh says, Paroi was a mammon in Elokim. He was a kofer in the Shem Havaya. What does that mean? He believed God created the world, but he oilam kimin hagay noyeg. He set it in a system. He turned on the conveyor belt. He pressed start, and now the world operates. Hateva, Elokim is Hateva. He believed in nature, but he did not believe that Hashem was haya hoiva v'yeh mahave kol havayis, that Hashem could override the system, that Hashem is mechadesh b'chol yom tam in Masa Bereshis, and he constantly is changing and overriding, and every event that happens is the Yad Hashem at that moment. Paroi did not believe in that. So the purpose of the Makos was to show that there's a Yud Kei Vav Kei. So it comes out very beautiful and very compelling that the number of words in the Haggadah correspond to the Shem Havaya. That's the purpose of the Haggadah. The Tachlis of the Haggadah is to come to Hakara in the Shem Havaya.
I thought you were going to say that he believed in Elokim and Midas Hadin only.
Oh.
Not Shem Havaya to Midas Harachman.
Yeah.
That the Rebbeinu Shalom was going to take out his...
It could be the concept of din and teva is connected, and the concept of rachman and Shem Havaya is also connected. So it could be that as well. Maybe. Yeah. Right.
That he didn't believe that despite them falling to the Memta Shari Tumah, that there's the Midas Harachman.
On that note, on the Memta Shari Tumah, right before the Haggadah went to print, I'll give a little insight. This is inside ArtScroll?
Yeah.
Okay, I hope I could. Right before the Haggadah went to print, I got a hold of the Haggadah Reb Chaim Falaji. I'm a big
I know you're a big
Reb Chaim Falaji. I even went to his kever in Turkey when back in the good old days when you could still go to Turkey. He wrote a Haggadah Zechir L'chaim. So I'm looking at the Halach Ma'anya. It says Piska Aleph. So I say Piska B. I see Ma'ashtan, Piska Beis, Piska Gimel, Piska. I say, how many Piskois are there? Go'al Yisrael, Piska Nun. And then it stops. So and then I see that Reb Chaim Falaji says he wanted to break up the Haggadah into components to see how many segments there are. And he says that lo and behold, he discovered there are 50 segments in the Haggadah. And the reason is based on Tikunei Zohar and also Reb Eliyahu HaKohen of Izmir. It says Yetzias Mitzrayim 50 times in the Chumash, because had we remained there a moment longer, we would have fallen into the Shar Nun, the point of no return. So Yetzias Mitzrayim was HaKadosh Baruch Hu being moitzias from the 50 Sha'arim. Keneged zeh, they formatted the Haggadah with 50 segments. So to me, again, this all fits into what I was trying to accomplish with the Haggadah, that I want to see the Haggadah as one formatted document. How many words are there? How many segments are there? What's the flow? Why do some people come in at different intervals? So I put in the Haggadah, in the very beginning, a list of all the various piska'os and what they are. Like I named all the chapters of the Haggadah. Let's see if we could. And based on Reb Chaim Falaji. Yeah, here on page 131, the 50 piska'os. However, if ArtScroll ever does a Reb Chaim Falaji Haggadah, okay, this is the inside ArtScroll, then it will say by each one what number it is. But this is not the Reb Chaim Falaji Haggadah. So just in one section, it lists the 50 Piskais.
It's interesting you mentioned the Memte Shari Tumah, but Chazal also say that there will never be a door like the Yetzias Mitzrayim. So on one hand, they had fallen to the lowest level of Tumah. On the other hand, there was something very unique about the Yetzias Mitzrayim, about that door, that will never be replicated. How does that dichotomy work?
Okay, that's a very important question, and this is really a question that should be focused on and addressed more. And there's an essay on this question in this Haggadah. I will point out, when we talk about the Mem Teshari Tumah, and this idea that if we were to fall into the Shar Nun, it's the point of no return.
Right.
I want to point out, it's so common, we always say it, the Shar Nun, the point of no return. Is there a Shar Nun? It's very, many maintain that indeed there is a Shar Nun. The Vilna Gaon says, Loi haya v'loi nivra, there is no Shar Nun. It does not exist. The Gra and Mishlei says on the Pasuk, Kol payal Hashem l'ma'anehu v'gam rasha liyoim ra. Kol, the Shar Nun of Kedusha, payal Hashem l'ma'anehu. V'gam, 49, rasha. There are only 49 for the rasha. There is no Shar Nun. The Leshem brings that there is an opinion in Kabbalah, there is a Shar Nun. And the Leshem says the Gra is definitively correct, there is no Shar Nun. So that's a very interesting, but there is, let's say, even according to the Leshem and the Gra, there's a Shar Mem Tes, the point of no return. And if I could just interrupt very briefly, I always wondered, how could you say there's a point of no return? I mean, isn't that antithetical? Don't we always believe?
To the whole Yiddishkeit.
Oh, you said
Ad Yom Moisei.
Ad Yom Moisei.
Right.
Ein Yush Ba'olam.
Right.
Hashem b'chol yom mechak elai. Hashem is always, even acher. The Chazal say, Shuvu vanum shoivavim chutz me acher, but kol ma she'amar lecha ba'al habayis asei chutz mitzei. The Shla says, whatever Rebbeinu Shem tells you, you listen, unless he says, get out, you can't do tshuva. Then you don't have to listen.
Right.
Anyone could do tshuva. I was thinking about this. What exactly is this point of no return? And the point of no return is a Kabbalistic concept. And I think I found the answer in the most basic source, the Rambam. The Rambam in Hilchos Avodah Zarah writes about the development of Avodah Zarah. The Rambam says, that Avram Avinu came along and he planted in the hearts of Klal Yisrael the Ikar of Emunah, and he gave it over to Yitzchak, and he gave it over to Yaakov. And then we went down to Mitzrayim, and the planting of Avraham began to wane. And had we remained a moment longer, the planting that Avraham planted in us would have been ne'ekar legamri. And to me, it sounds very similar to this idea of the point of no return, but it's giving a rationale. And I think it's as follows. There is no question that there is no point of no return. You could always do tshuva. But here's the thing. Who are we? Who is Rabbi Yitzchak Hizagar? Who's Daniel Glatstein? We are B'nai Avraham. Why are we B'nai Avraham? Because there's something that Avraham planted into our spiritual DNA. However, had we remained in Mitzrayim a moment longer, you know who we would have been? We just would have been us. And we could not trace back our spiritual ancestry to Avram Avinu. We would have been cut off from the Avos HaKadoshim. Not that we would have been, not that we would have fallen into the abyss and we can never return to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but the connection to the bedrock of our past would have been completely severed. So Yetzias Mitzrayim then is a celebration, not, Hashem took us out of the Shar Nun. What is the Shar Nun? Hashem rescued us so that we were able to recover our eternal connection to the Avos. Maybe that's why you have the emphasis of Haggadah Shel Pesach. There's no other mitzvah that you have to give to your child. Do the mitzvah, shake the lulav, blow the shofar. But Yetzias Mitzrayim was a celebration that we're eternally connected. That's perhaps the meaning behind this point of no return. But you ask, so how do we evaluate the level that Klal Yisrael were on when they left Mitzrayim? Were they on the brink or were they on the highest level?
Right.
the Leshem says that it's a mistake to say that the night of Yetzias Mitzrayim we were going to fall to the brink. How could that be? He says, once Hashem began to bring the Makos, like a year earlier, and we began to see the Hashgacha, that propelled us to great heights. Mm-hmm. If we were ever on the brink, it was
prior to the
before the Makos.
Uh-huh.
The night of Yetzias Mitzrayim, like you said before, we were on the highest level of anyone in history. Ready for this? I want everyone, all the audience, to fasten their seatbelts. Says the Baal HaLeshem, you know what it means had we remained in Mitzrayim a moment longer? We would have been on the point of no return. Had we remained in Mitzrayim a moment longer, with such Giloi Shechina, we would have been propelled to the 50th level of Kedusha, and then there would be no Tachlis Habriya, and then we would have to call it a day. So not that we would fall to the point of no return, we would have been propelled lamala to of a madrega that Hashem wanted us to be on. So at first we were at the brink. Through the Makos, Hashem began to elevate us until the night of Yetzias Mitzrayim. We were at the brink of the summit of Kedusha. Had we remained there a moment longer, b'moira gadol zu gila shchina, we would have been elevated to the greatest level, and that we couldn't have yet.
I would add that the amazing component of this vart that you're saying is that they were able to reach the pinnacle of Kedusha still in Mitzrayim. They were still in the Ervas Haaretz.
Very good.
It was in Mitzrayim itself, which was the most immoral land in the world, where they fell to the lowest abyss. But also it was within that environment that they also rose to the highest level of Kedusha, which should provide tremendous chizuk to everyone. Now,
Beautiful.
That even within the immoral environment, a person could reach that level of holiness and purity.
Beautiful.
Sometimes people think, oh, I have to be extricate me from the Ervas Haaretz, and then I'll be able to reach the Kedusha. This part that you're saying is so potent and so powerful, because it's telling us that Adrabah, Klal Yisrael reached that level even when they were there, before they went out.
Beautiful.
Married.
Beautiful.
Mamasha, we have a Rischa Daraisa here.
What could be better? That's what the Sifrei Chasidus say. Tchila l'mekroi kodesh. When you're embarking on a voyage of Kedusha, you know, you always have to remember, Zecher Yetzias Mitzrayim. Don't be down on yourself, because think about where they were and still what they were able to elevate themselves to.
Speaking of elevating, this Haggadah is pure spiritual bliss. It's an elevation.
Thank you.
I know how much aliyah I felt going through the beautiful shtiklach, and those who didn't go through it last year, and even those who did, should make sure to do it again. Get a hold of the Haggadah. I think it will enhance their Seder quite significantly, and it's never too late to wish you a mazel tov on the
Thank you.
release.
Thank you very much.
It's a year old, but it's as fresh and it's as new as ever, and there's so much in here, and we appreciate you sharing from your well springs of Yedias and your passion and your messages that resonate with people so beautifully. So Chel Raisa, keep doing what you're doing with your Abbas Satira and putting out such really beautiful svarim, such a Kiddush Shem Shemayim.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for being here.
My pleasure, and it's a great honor to see you.
Thank you.